A little over 20 years ago, Kia launched the Cerato small car in Australia, and without being unfair, it was exceedingly average. Since then, there's been 3 more generations, thankfully each better than the last. And the most recent Cerato's been so popular, it's actually the second most popular small car in Australia behind the Toyota Corolla. Sadly, it's time to farewell the Cerato forever. But fear not, kids, because Kia has a new small car with a new name. Say good day to the Kia K4, which is arriving with a whole bunch of new tech, a sleek new design, and a little bit of a price increase. The Kia K4 sedan is rolling into dealerships as we speak, but if you're a hatchback fan, fear not. That's going to arrive before the end of the year. Now, let's get down to the nitty-gritty and find out if this is a worthy successor to the Cerato and a worthy rival to the Toyota Corolla, the Mazda 3 and the Hyundai i30 sedans.
For now, there are 3 model grades and 2 powertrains, but prices are up across the board by as much as $6,000. Returning grades include the S, Sport and Sport Plus, all powered by a naturally aspirated 2-litre petrol engine. The GT becomes GT line for the new model, but it still gets the sporty 1.6-litre turbo, albeit with a lower tune. Pricing kicks off at $30,590 before on-road costs for the entry-level S, which is $3,500 more than the previous version. The range tops out at $42,990 for the turbocharged GT line. Pricing is very much in line with those rivals mentioned earlier, although the Corolla has a higher starting price. There's a lot of standard safety gear offered, but more on that in the safety section. All grades except the S feature twin 12.3-inch digital screens for multimedia and instrumentation, with the base S making do with a 4-inch driver's display. The K4 comes standard with wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, digital radio, a smart key with push-button start, power folding and heated exterior mirrors, 4 USB-C outlets and 6 or 8 speaker audio system. More detailed specs can be found in the written review at carsguide.com.au.
Even after 7 years, I think the Cerato is still a really handsome car, but I think the K4 brings Kia's small car bang up to date in terms of design. It's really in keeping with Kia's latest design language, which was seen on models like the Picanto and the Sorento facelifts, but as well as the EV range. I really like this design in the metal. I love this fastback silhouette. I'm a hatchback guy, but I'm such a fan of this sedan design. And the squared off head and tail lights are just the icing on the cake. It's a really successful design. So a couple of years ago, I reviewed the Kia Cerato GT. You can find that review at carsguide.com.au. Now, one of my key criticisms during that review was the interior design, which was looking real old by that point in the Cerato's life cycle. So Kia's addressed that in a big way with the K4. It's an all-new interior design that won't be unfamiliar if you've seen a number of Kia's current models, like the Sorento, for example. Key to that is these twin 12.3-inch screens, one for the instrumentation, one for multimedia and Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. Now, it's a really simple design, but it's quite effective. And the dash generally is also a simple yet effective design. There are some other new elements to Kia small car, including this lovely steering wheel here in the GT line. It's a 3-spoke number, dual tone, quite cool. And overall, the interior design is, I would say, attractive without being groundbreaking. So the K4 is bigger than the Cerato, which means more interior space. We'll get to the rear in a minute. It's marginal up the front, but there is more shoulder room. And you certainly don't feel hemmed in this car. It almost feels like a mid-size car. But in terms of practicality, what I love about this car is the fact that it's not all about these screens. There are the twin screens that I mentioned earlier. There's also an HVAC screen in the middle, but you can access the HVAC through these buttons. Remember buttons? Yeah, let's not get rid of buttons. Love buttons. So big thumbs up there for keeping that. I think it's a safety issue and they've done a really good job. Elsewhere, there's a reasonable amount of storage. There's not a huge amount of space in here, but it's a small car and that's more than enough. The glove box will fit the manual and a few other items. My bottle and bigger bottles than this, easily fitting in the doors, and there's quite a bit of other space there as well. You've got some storage up the front here. In this GT line, that has the wireless charger, but in the other models, you can just pop your phone there. I do love this massive space for the cup holders because it's got that system that you can use so it hems in the cups, but if you close those over, then you've got just this really large space that you can fit a lot of items in. So it's pretty clever stuff. Okay, so as mentioned, the K4 is bigger than Cerato, and that means more space, particularly in the rear. There's quite a lot of space that's been liberated back here, and that's noticeable when I sit behind my 6-foot-something tall driving position. I've got so much legroom. This feels like a medium-sized car. I've said it before, but it's very true. There's a reasonable amount of tow room for sure. The only criticism I really have back here is that gorgeous silhouette with the roofline means that my head is just scraping the roof liner. But it's not uncomfortable. Again, I don't feel hemmed in or anything like that. In terms of amenities back here, thank you, Kia, for putting rear air vents. I can't tell you how rare it is to find a small car or a small SUV or any sort of model like that without any ventilation back here. So kudos, Kia, for doing that. You've got a couple of USB-C ports back here as well, some little nooks. My bottle fits in the door fairly well. And you've also got, of course, a fold-down armrest with a couple of shallow cup holders there. And you've got some lovely, comfortable, almost bucketed seats as well. You don't have map pockets on the rear of both seats, just one over there, but that's not exactly a deal breaker. So lovely, spacious spot to sit back here.
The K4 has a massive boot and can swallow 508 litres of cargo, which is not only bigger than the Corolla, but also bigger than the last Aussie-built Holden Commodore. If you lower the 60/40 split-fold rear seats, it expands even further. And there's a temporary spare wheel under the boot floor. All K4 grades except the GT line come with Kia's existing 2-litre 4-cylinder naturally aspirated petrol engine. It has power and torque of 112 kilowatts and 192 newton meters respectively, and drives the front wheels via a 6-speed torque converter auto. The GT line uses the 1.6-litre 4-cylinder turbocharged petrol unit familiar from the Cerato GT and other Hyundai Group models. The power and torque outputs of 142 kilowatts and 264 newton meters are down slightly compared with the outgoing Cerato GT's 150 kilowatts, 265 newton meter figures. The turbo is matched with an 8-speed torque converter auto. The 2-litre unit maintains the outgoing Cerato's combined cycle fuel use figure of 7.4 litres per 100 kilometres. Consumption for the 1.6 turbo has dropped by 0.2 litres to 6.7 litres. The 2-litre Sport and Sport Plus grades I drove are best described as adequate performers. You're not going to beat a Porsche pulling away at traffic lights, and the engine could definitely do with a bit more grunt, but it's an honest and competent powertrain. It's great for urban driving, and the 6-speed transmission is smooth and uncomplicated. But what's the turbo 1.6 version like?
Okay, so I'm behind the wheel of the Kia K4 GT line. This is the new flagship. As mentioned, there's no more GT, so this is more like a warm hatch rather than a hot hatch, which is kind of, I guess, what you could call the Cerato GT. So this is a bit detuned, but it's still the sporty option if that's your vibe, and in Australia, that's a lot of people's vibes. But straight up, having spent quite a bit of time in the Cerato GT, it's very clear that the work that they've done internationally and locally through the local tuning program led by Graham Gambold, it's a much more compliant and comfortable ride than the Cerato GT. Having said that, it's certainly firmer than the ride quality of the 2-litre versions. But for my money, it's not as unlivable as the Cerato GT. So you get a bit of fun, you get a bit of firmness, but it's not going to send you to the chiropractor. Let's see how quick it is. That's plenty quick. And it also sounds quite nice as well. There's a really nice engine note. And again, it plays to that whole kind of warmed up version of a small car. Not quite a hot hatch, but certainly a little bit more playful and fun than the 2-litre versions. The steering in this is definitely geared for sportier driving. It's much heavier than, again, the 2-litre grades. So a bit of firmness, but still pretty direct. Another huge area of improvement over the Cerato is noise, vibration and harshness. So the insulation to keep noise out of the cabin is much more successful in this car than it was in the Cerato. Particularly some of the entry grades of the Cerato were quite rough and I would say unrefined. In this 1.6 turbo version, so again the GT line, there's a bit of road noise coming through, but again, it's much quieter than the Cerato GT. But I would say that the 2-litre grades, I couldn't detect any road noise coming into the cabin. And even when you go over kind of big bumps or whatever, that didn't really make a fuss in the cabin. And there was no vibration coming through the wheel or anything like that. So it's a much quieter cabin than the model it replaces.
At the time of publishing, the K4 has not received an ANCAP crash safety rating, but the solid standard safety list includes a front centre airbag to help avoid front occupant injury in a side collision, as well as the usual features like AEB, adaptive cruise with stop and go, a lane keeping aid, multi-collision braking, and blind spot collision assist. A safety pack is available on the S grade for $2,100 that adds more safety and other features. Keep an eye on carsguide.com.au for the upcoming ANCAP score and check my written review for more safety specs. Kia has an excellent standard factory warranty of 7 years and unlimited kilometres. The service intervals for the 2-litre grades are every 12 months or 15,000 kilometres, whichever occurs first, while the 1.6-litre turbo schedule is every 12 months or 10,000 kilometres. Both powertrain grades come with 7 years of capped price servicing, and the total cost of servicing over that period for the 2-litre will be about $3,220. The 1.6-litre GT line will cost just under $3,900 all up over 7 years.
Okay, so now I've driven most of the Kia K4 grades. But is this a worthy successor to the Cerato, and is it better than some of its rivals?
The K4 represents a big improvement over the Cerato in every area, but it doesn't exactly move the game forward. But if you're after a competent, comfortable and spacious small passenger car, it should definitely be on your shopping list. For more on the Kia K4, head to carsguide.com.au.